Hi there, and welcome to the HR Podcast. This is Linda Misagatas
and Cyndi Manuel, and we'll be your co-hosts. After spending years working in and with HR, we thought, why not start a podcast to support the important HR community? We believe the way things have always been done isn't necessarily what's going to work in the future. So we're diving into topics that support HR and working women as they navigate the future of work. We're talking about professional growth and also how we can support each other as human beings.
We can't wait to bring you insights from HR experts, thought leaders, and inspiring women who are making a real difference in their organization and communities. They'll share their journeys and tips on balancing work and life in a better way. We're excited to learn alongside you and hope you'll pick up some great takeaways from tips and tricks to worksheets that you can actually use in your daily life. So grab your favorite beverage
or lace up your walking shoes and join us for the HR Her Resources podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Her Resources, can't even say it, Cyndi, must be Friday. The Her Resources podcast. I'm here in the studio with my amazing co-host, Cyndi Manuel. How are you?
Thank you for saying I'm amazing.
Well,
this has been quite a week, so just busy, hectic, productive, but I appreciate that word, and I feel the same about you as well.
Thanks. That's amazing. Yeah. Well, we are super excited about this topic that we get to talk about today, AI, because I don't think, Cyndi, we have had an episode yet where AI hasn't somehow crept into the conversation, right? So it just goes to show how important this is. And I'm just going to, before I introduce our amazing guest that's here with us today, just a couple of statistics that are highlighting the impact of AI in human resources. Just from an adoption rates perspective, over 60% of companies currently use AI in at least one HR function, and projections suggest this could rise to 80% in the next few years. The market growth. The AI in HR market is expected to grow from $3.89 billion in 2022 to $17.61 billion by 2027, which is just unbelievable, the rate of growth around it. Recruitment, we know AI-powered recruitment tools can automatically screen about 75% of job applicants, which is great from helping with those administrative components. We're seeing approximately about 98.8% of the Fortune 500 companies are using applicant tracking systems, the AI applicant tracking in their recruitment processes. Employees, slight majority of employees believe generative AI will have a positive impact, but, a lot of people are still really scared about that. And we're going to chat with Ebony about that today as well. HR professionals, about 64% of HR professionals are reporting using AI or automation to at least filter unsuitable job applicants. And 85% of those that are using AI say that it saves time or improves efficiency. And future plans, it says about 92% of HR leaders plan to incorporate AI into their talent acquisition strategies. So Cyndi and I are so lucky to have Ebony Irvin with us today. She is a dynamic and results-driven professional with over 15 years of experience in human resources and a decade of expertise in HR strategy, technology, and change management consulting. She has a proven track record of driving transformational change. She's worked across diverse industries, including technology, oil and gas, government, and consumer goods, delivering impactful solutions on a global scale. She's passionate about empowering individuals and organizations, and she brings a unique blend of strategic insight and practical expertise. In addition to specializing in helping businesses navigate complex HR challenges, she also implements cutting-edge technology and fostering inclusive, high-performing cultures. Welcome to the podcast, Ebony.
Thank you for having me, Linda and Cyndi. It is fantastic. I'm super excited about this topic.
I know you are. As we've been talking about this, you have been on my mind all the time because I'm like, you were one of the first people that I actually talked to about this when we had you come on and speak to our sales organization a little bit about kind of like AI and where it was going when everybody was kind of tripping out about the whole idea of AI and how it was going to be incorporated in. So,
which was not that long ago. I just want to say that, like,
no,
we were just, Ebony, just so you know, Linda and I had this conversation last year, and not even that long ago, like maybe, I don't know, 5-6 months ago. And we were like, we need to bring somebody on who actually knows what they're
really knows what they're talking about. That's right.
And then I think when we talked then, I think I told you guys it'll evolve in 6 months.
You did.
And here we are.
Holy cow. Like overnight. You were not wrong at all. You said then we had just scratched the surface and that it was moving so quickly. So maybe talk a little bit about like, how is AI automating repetitive tasks like recruiting, onboarding, and payroll? Like talk to us about what's going on around that.
Absolutely. So recruiting and onboarding is always going to be a challenge because it talks about the employee experience for sure, especially when we're onboarding, when we're talking to candidates, making sure we're getting back to them in a timely fashion, just all of that. What we are seeing and what I've seen at my current employer is that one of the biggest things that we see as a problem is the follow-up with candidates.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. So what they're doing now is kind of automating that. So it's scheduling the time for the recruiters to get back with you. It's scheduling the time for hiring managers. It's sending those follow-up and those nudges to prospective candidates as well to say, hey, even when I'm onboarding you, or hey, you have a meeting coming up with this person. It's giving you the flexibility to kind of schedule time. Whereas before, I would send you an email as a recruiter saying, hey, Linda, do you have time to meet with me? And I would type in, I'm available Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Now I can send you a calendar. It'll give you all my availability and boom, you don't even have to be an internal employee. You can do it yourself. And then it'll nudge you to say, hey, I have a meeting with Linda on Wednesday and we're going to talk about this, and this. It's stuff like that that's being automated. As well as the onboarding. When people get started, there may be assets that you need, like computers or just whatever that could be. And typically what will happen is you would have to work with an HR person or somebody to give you your computer. Now, once we onboard you, we can type that into the system. It automatically kind of does those tasks automatically for you.
Which is so good.
It could be training as well. So if you know that you're coming into a highly regulated area or something that requires a significant amount of training, you can send them in advance. These are the 10 trainings you're going to need for the first 30 days. This is what you're going to need in 60 days. This is what you're going to need in 90 days. So people are not necessarily left in the dark about, hey, what do I need to do next? So it's providing them a different type of experience. Now, of course, I tell people all the time, AI does not negate the human aspect. So you still, I tell people, you still need to buddy with somebody at your company so they can kind of help you. But trying to figure out just, when do I do training? When do I do this? When do I get my paycheck? When do I, some of the things that we're constantly on the phone with HR and recruiters saying, well, what can I expect next? You're getting a whole checklist that's going to nudge you and tell you got training this day. You need to meet with this person. You can do that. So that's one of the key things that you'll see from that standpoint. Then from a recruiting standpoint, it's keeping recruiters on task. Like when I say on task, I mean, the average recruiter now is getting over 100 recs. I mean, if you go to LinkedIn and you post a job today, you can get over 100 applicants.
That's true. Yeah.
So it's important, and from for a prospective employee that's looking to be hired, optimizing your information is one thing. So you can kind of go in and change the formatting. So I think at one point in time, you saw these glitz and glam of bullets and all of this. It's very simple now. You want to kind of keep your information simple, push it through to an applicant tracking system so it can pull. So we'll talk about that too, about ethical bias and all of that, because that's a data-driven too, from historical data that you possibly could use. But it's things like that that are keeping that process simplified. So it's kind of helping recruiters at a faster rate, a rapid rate, to kind of see who's qualified, who's not. again, you still need the human interaction because there are qualified candidates that you still need to, you still have to look at some of this stuff, and I tell people, even though an AI system can look and say, oh, they have the first 10 things, but it's a lot of qualified people that you may miss. So I still urge people to say, hey, listen, you still need that human intervention as you kind of do the recruiting process. So we never get away of needing a person. Let me say that for sure.
I like that. Well, and I think that's so important to say that, because that's one of the things that I know Cyndi and I hear all the time is just that fear about how do I prevent my organization from thinking that AI is just going to replace all these people. Because, C-suite people, they see this technology come along and it kind of starts to equate to dollar signs a little bit like, ooh, I could reduce my head count, which would reduce my overhead and increase my profits. And so talk a little bit more about, that human element and why it's so critical to what we're doing.
So here's the thing about HR, and I'm going to lump HR all together. So I'm going to look at it holistically from compensation, payroll, benefits, recruitment, onboarding, learning, all of that.
The whole life cycle. Yeah,
exactly. So here's the thing. We can automate as many tasks as we can to kind of get people back to the strategic work for sure.
Yeah.
But there's only so much strategic work. So I tell people
that's true.
I'm in full transparency.
Yeah.
And there's never not going to be a time where a person is going to not want to speak to somebody, especially when it comes to their paycheck.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. If a person's paycheck is a penny off, I don't care how many automated systems you have.
That's right.
I want to talk to somebody. I want to know why.
So true.
I don't want to look. I'm gonna keep pushing the button. I want to talk to somebody.
You answer the phone. That's right.
It's the same thing with their health and welfare. Health benefits are so important. So you go into a doctor and then you find out you got $1,000 bill and no coverage. I don't want to talk to. I don't want to talk to a
I'm not
system.
Going to chat with the bot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You want to talk to a person. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where, I tell, organizations from a consulting point, we have to scale up. You have to skill up, not necessarily scale up, but you got to skill up. So you may reduce head count to some degree. I've done full transparency.
Sure. Yeah.
There is a possibility that, hey, everybody can't go. But what you can do is repurpose those people for more strategic work. Because if they're not doing the mundane tasks, you can do kind of like what we see with shared services and COEs. You can do stuff like we have a payroll division where they focus solely on complex payroll issues. So taxes in California, taxes in New York, that kind of stuff. And so there may be an issue that can't be answered by AI. And the AI can be very minimal. And here's the thing. When you implement these chat bots and these things, you can tailor them to do whatever you want them to do.
Right.
So if you want them to answer very base level things, and then it's escalated, you can totally do that. Now, some organizations want the more complex, please, I don't want to talk to anybody until it's like tier 3. You can do that. But a lot of companies are not necessarily doing that because they understand the importance of the human aspect of it.
Yeah.
So they want to keep it very baseline. So it's like certain things like employment verification letters, you would be surprised at how many HR people were doing backflips when they didn't have to do that.
Oh,
and how many employees were excited about, oh my God, I don't have to wait 7 to 10 days to get an employment verification letter to my bank or anything, right? So you can get it now in minutes. So and that's a very mundane process. However, the more complex things, and even I'm speaking from employee, but let's talk about from a manager self-service. When a manager has to call HR and say, hey, look, I need policy information. And that person is saying, I'll get back to you in a week.
Yes.
And today. Right this second. Yeah.
Exactly. So now you can create a knowledge base where managers can go in and do self-service. I can pull up an entire policy and it'll give you you can put in an employee's name and say, hey, based on this employee that I have or my direct reports, how do I manage this? AI can pull that for you. But like I said, it's a customization. Like I said, it's with anything. Like if you implemented Workday, some people buy Workday out the box, and I'm using them loosely. But if you do any type of ERP system, as soon as you buy it out the box. But most people, most organizations can say, I want to customize this a little bit.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with chatbots and Gen AI. It can pull information, but again, it's the data we give it. It's the data you feed it.
Yep. Yeah.
So if you want to
garbage out, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So if you want to do something at a base level, you can. Or if you want to do something complex, you can. And the more complex you get, you have to understand that those people that you may have had in other roles that were doing certain tasks, you can reskill them. And you can say, this person is this team is focused solely on recruiting efforts and what that looks like in complex issues there. This team is focused on health and welfare. You can do an executive comp team that focuses solely on executive comp. So when executives have Gen AI issues and need to be escalated, there is somebody to kind of handhold them through that as well. So
I like that.
It can really, the possibilities are really and truly endless in that respect.
And talk a little bit. Oh, sorry, Cyndi, just real quick. Just staying on that human element for a minute. Talk about too, though, that reskilling piece of it a little bit, Ebony, because what I'm starting to see is that that in some cases it's making us a little dumber from the standpoint that now when you do get the person, they have no idea what to do because nobody's training them on the things that they need to know. So they end up just being the voice you finally get because you keep pushing zero and you finally get that person. But then they're like, well, I can't help you with any of that. I'll have to get back with you, or let me go check with this. And so talk a little bit about that piece of it too.
So what we did, and I'm going to talk about IBM. So what IBM did was they triaged everybody based on their skill set. And it's something that you can definitely do. So you may do a skills assessment because sometimes you have a group of HR generalists and sometimes they're good at everything. And sometimes, you know what? That's not my wheelhouse. My thing may be ER related issues. My thing might be FMLA leave of absence. My thing might be that. So it's doing a skills assessment and seeing where people are strong. That's number one. And then two, making sure, because legislation changes all the time, making sure that whatever, point of reference they are in, they are educated fully and keeping up with the laws and all of those things necessary to be compliant. Right.
Yeah.
So it does two things. It helps the organization remain compliant as well as making sure the people that you have in place that are also compliant also.
That makes sense.
So
yeah, I'm sorry.
So sorry. I want to ask you too, Ebony. So I love the thought of, a skills assessment. What are people interested in? What are they good at? What can we upskill them in? Before you even get there, when you are looking from an HR perspective at AI, how do you determine what you're going to use AI for and what you're still going to want to use humans for?
Absolutely. So you look at the volume. There are certain things, like, for example, I'll go back to the employment verification. We do a lot. HR people around the world do a lot of employment verification. Yeah. So is it something, how much time so you look at the time that it's taking the time it's taken away from more strategic tasks, how many of those requests that you get. And that's how organizations are kind of defining, oh my God, we can kind of scale this back and Gen AI can take care of that. So for example, I think payroll is something I probably would keep at a very minimum personally.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's just at a professional level. And I say that because a lot of things, it's a lot of things you need human intervention because all 50 states are different.
That's right.
Yes, they are.
And so so you want to make sure you can have base level information. You can maybe take it or bump it up a notch and they can able to view pay statements and certain things like that. But when it comes to child support garnishes, student loan garnishments, IRS garnishments, I think you need a whole team of that. Because you don't want to leave that to chance because the information can change. It may not be factual. So it's certain things like that. even though the volume may be great, you just might need a bigger team for that who can manage that.
When you need that empathy side too, right? I mean,
exactly.
I think that's the one piece is like like you were talking about health and wellness and like those. Like the last thing I want to do personal. If all of a sudden, if I'm upset because I'm not going to be able to make my mortgage payment because my paycheck is wrong or didn't show up, I don't want to talk to a chatbot about that. I need to talk to a human who's going to empathize with my situation, who's going to recognize the emotional impact that this is having on me and help me through it. So
absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. I like that.
So it's that. I mean, so it's certain things like when you say, you want to keep it at a base level. How much vacation time do I have? How much sick time do I have?
Sure.
Yeah.
So when you're calculating and tracking those things, absolutely keep that, because nobody wants to spend an hour on hold waiting to talk to their HR person or their manager to say, how much vacation do I have? Oh, that kind of stuff. If you want to know about an FMLA policy, you may not necessarily want to be on hold for that, but you can go to a chatbot and type in, what is my company's FMLA policy? And that pulls up, and they'll know exactly what the guidelines are. It can tell them if they are based on their employee personnel file, it'll tell you whether they qualify for certain things or not. You can kind of get those qualifiers out. But it becomes the complex issues when I didn't get paid on disability, or my disability is calculated wrong. Is it 60% or 70%? It's things like that. And when people are sick, like I said, pay and illness, health and welfare are the two things that I don't care what system you have in place and how flawless it can be. People are going to want to have a conversation with someone.
That's Maslow's hierarchy. Like you need to know that when you go to work every day. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Makes a lot of sense.
And it's a lot. And it's also a lot of expectation that because here's the thing, with AI, a lot of this stuff becomes self-service to your you as an employee, but also to your manager.
That's
your
true.
manager is, I tell people all the time, managers are not HR individuals. They're just not. They're managers. They manage a function. So you can't go to them with the reasonable expectation that my manager is going to know that I get 12 weeks of FMLA because I've been here for 5 years. You know what I mean? How would they know that?
Right.
They're gonna redirect you back to something else. So it's stuff like that you can kind of navigate through, but you want to make sure you have to have a competent HR person there. That's just reality of what it is.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
No. Talk about the ethical considerations, Ebony, because we do hear this all the time. And even I know there was a lawsuit. I won't say the company, but there was a lawsuit out there for when this really kind of first was coming out around recruitment, that they felt that there was bias in the recruitment strategy in the tool that they were using. Now, like anything, right? It's how it's configured and how it's built. So it's not like the AI was itself being biased. Something was built into the technology that was making it either appear or was biased. Talk about ethical considerations and the things that need to be taken into, all, because there's all different pieces of it, right? It's not just one part of ethic. Like there's a whole bunch of buckets that you need to really be thinking about, right?
Absolutely. So when you think about ethical bias, you think about being fair to people for sure, and not being discriminatory. And the thing is, it's based on the data that you provide to the AI that feeds into the AI system. So you have to be very careful about whatever that algorithm is. And it's kind of hard to kind of talk about the algorithm when it comes to that, because again, it goes back to the employee data and historically what they have done and what they put in place in terms of discriminatory practices. Do we keep up with EEOC information and how that data is actually configured and put into the system? So some companies are really good at that, but if you're unaware of how that works, it's always good to consult a professional when it comes to building out those data sets, for sure.
That makes sense. No. Well, just staying on that for just a second, as we see what's happening across the country related to a lot of, this push to remove DEI efforts, I'm curious, like, you cannot unravel what's already started in organizations as they've incorporated that into the technology. So how can you maybe leverage that technology to then say, all right, we don't have to call out that we have DEI initiatives, but we certainly can still have it built into the technology to ensure that we're, being fair and equitable and inclusive without necessarily having to announce it to the world. It should already be part of your technology, right? So talk a little bit about that.
Let me listen. I'm gonna be full transparent and honest. We want to believe that organizations are going to do that.
I know that's true.
Essentially, that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
So, it's kind of a 50-50. I think what's already out in the systems, people are not going to go in and say, "Oh God, we're going to take all this stuff out."
Right, we're not going to rip it out. Yeah.
But I think it's the knowledge of saying, I don't have to do this, but it's really about just being equitable, period. My thing is, like I said, and I've done recruiting as well.
Yeah.
You want to be extremely fair. Like when I look at people, I'm looking at your credentials. I need the most qualified butt in the seat to come in here and help.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's not about if you're a transgender, you're a woman, you're a man, you're Muslim, you're a Christian, whatever that looks like. If you're a qualified individual, those are the things that we should care about, right?
As it should.
Exactly. So I think a lot of organizations will still stay in that space.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm gonna be quite honest. I really don't know. I think it's gonna be open to see. Exactly. It's gonna be very interesting because you see some companies are rolling back DEI and then they're putting them right back. Like, oh my God.
Yes.
So it's just kind of like, I don't know what that will look like.
It's a tumultuous time. How do you recommend to people, Ebony, that they sort of educate themselves especially in HR, when it comes to AI?
I think you have to. There are so many classes, free classes I've seen on all kind of stuff, just to educate yourself on just Gen AI, period.
The baseline stuff, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you got to look at what the education system has done too. So like, of course, now, are kids really sitting down writing papers, or am I just putting something in the system and saying, write something for me? They have a check and balance system to determine if you did that.
Yeah.
That's true.
There are companies now that are using Ask This with that company. So they're creating chatbots to go in and they're saying, don't take our information and put into something else because of, proprietary information.
Yep.
So I think it's about educating yourself and keeping up with what the laws are in just globally, period.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. Understanding what's changing, how people are going to be affected, being abreast of human resources attributes is the first thing. The second thing is, from a technology standpoint, it's like anything else, except Gen AI is not AI is not something that we purchase, or you can purchase it to some degree, but it's not something that you can purchase like you would do a Workday or a SuccessFactors and you learn it and all
it's already there.
Exactly. Gen AI is something that's just there. It's there. If I go to the internet, it's there. Whether it's in my company or not, it's there. So take a little bit of time, understand just what it is, understand how the data is. And that's just by classes, that's just by information. LinkedIn has a couple of things that you can do. I know Credly has classes. It's something called Conserve that does classes that you can take for free, and it'll just give you a baseline of what it is, from large language models and understanding how the data sets are made, and Python and how content is created, because everybody now is a content creator, by the way.
Yes,
so whether you think you are or not,
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. It's free, and you can just get in there and kind of start messing with it. I've told Linda this story, but the very first time, which was not that long ago, it really it's like it's here to stay, and it has just. I mean, I remember, when cell phones got to be more and more, intricate, but AI just seems like it is just on this path, so quickly, and it's been around a long time, but it seems like Chat GPT and stuff like that, it's just really The trajectory is amazing.
Just exploding.
And it's like, from what you see now, and then for what is to come, because now there are programs that can write content for you. There are programs that can create training for you. There are Gen AI, that can create job descriptions. Like we're talking about the recruitment process. It can generate job descriptions and create pay variations for you. There are things that can create PowerPoint presentations and proposals for you and pitch decks. So, I mean, and again, even with all those tools, I always tell people it's about the information that I put in.
That's right. It's a collaboration, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So a lot of people,
replacement.
Absolutely. A lot of people are afraid to say, oh my God, how does it work? I deal with my mom all the time. My mom is the one. My mom is so risk adverse to everything with computers. My mom still writes checks. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
She's like, I need a paper trail. She's that person. I need a paper trail. I'm just like, how unsafe that is, sending it through the mail. You never know. And I'm just trying to explain, but she's just like, no, I'm just not doing it. But I've had to push her. Even in that aspect, it's like, listen, this is what it is. This is the way that the world is going.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the
same. Get in there and check it out.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the same thing as we're going to see with banking. Crypto is good. Crypto, with all of that, what is that going to look like in 3 to 5 years?
I was going to say not even 5 years anymore, right?
Yeah.
Nope, it's happening overnight. Yeah.
And I think even when we, like I said, we talked before, the three of us, the biggest thing I think I told y'all, I said, this is going to evolve in 6 months. And I think in another 3 to 6 months from this conversation, it will have evolved again. So we'll be having exactly.
Yeah.
We'll have to have a different conversation.
We will. No, for sure.
At the Delta Principle, we are transforming the way you experience change. Have you ever experienced an organizational change where your employees pushed back because it was too much, too fast, or they just didn't understand why they couldn't do things the way they've always done them? What about where communication was non-existent or unorganized, with important updates getting lost in the shuffle, leaving people confused? And have you ever experienced change where morale was at an all-time low because the change felt overwhelming and not aligned with your organization's culture? If you are being asked to lead an important organizational change, especially if you're new to leading change, or if you're just feeling overwhelmed, the Delta Principle is here to support you. We work closely with you as a trusted partner, co-creating real-world solutions to address your unique challenges, and we equip you and your organization for future success. Are you gearing up for your next transformation journey or exploring ways to strengthen your change management skills? Then let's connect. This year, we're thrilled to introduce Leading Change, a training designed for leaders driving organizational initiatives, and Navigating Change, a training tailored to empower teams and adapting to change with confidence. Our coaching and training sessions are fully customizable to meet your organization's unique needs. Reach out today to see how we can partner with you to make your next change a success. You can find us on LinkedIn or by emailing us at info@thedeltaprinciple.com.
Well, Ebony, for some of our folks that are out there that aren't as familiar or just kind of getting into AI a little bit, talk about some of the open and closed AI and kind of what that means, because that's where when your company is saying to you, don't be putting our data out in ChatGPT or don't be doing this. Can you explain why that is so important, and kind of a little bit of that high level infrastructure behind AI and what the risks are associated when you just randomly throw stuff out there?
Absolutely. So it's kind of like when you go join a company and you sign a proprietary agreement to say, hey, listen, we're not going to give away company secrets. We're not going to give away client information. We're not going to do any of these things, right? That is the closed. Think about that in terms of closed AI. So you have companies that create chatbots, or they have systems where you can kind of key in and it'll pull up all the company data and you can ask questions. Imagine if I take company information and put it into OpenAI, and OpenAI is open to the public. It's for everybody to go get, but I'm taking copying and pasting company information and putting it in that open AI situation, the data becomes open to everybody. And just here's the thing. We talk about the dark web and we talk about all these other things that are out there, but it's the web. Right. I mean, and we can only, with the closed AI at an organization, there's security, there are guardrails around it. We can kind of monitor how safe it is. The information is in-house. Right. It's not leaving. Open AI is seriously, it's just open. I mean, there are guardrails around it. There's information they can pull, but it's the same thing with anything. You can, like I think I talked about this earlier. With a closed AI, if we're at a company, it's going to pull specific company information, specific things, specific all around that organization. Open AI pulls from every data source that you have. It's every data source. If it's Open AI through Google, if it's Open AI through DeepSeek, if it's Open AI through NVIDIA, whatever your choice of Gen AI is, it is a data source that is open.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, you're not, I doubt very seriously people are going to put their healthcare information into it to say, hey, I need feedback on this. Exactly.
Well, and I know with ChatGPT, just as an example, if you have the paid version, you can actually click, there's a couple of different places where you can say, this is closed information, like don't share this.
Don't share this information.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Definitely good to do that.
And that's good that they have that feature because, again, that information becomes public. And here's the thing. The Gen AI, the AI period, gets smarter based on the information you feed it.
Yes,
so if people are constantly feeding...
Which is cool and scary.
Absolutely.
Right? Yes.
Absolutely. So it's like I said, it's like with anything. It's like a robot. The more you do something with it, the smarter it gets. Yeah. So if I'm putting in this company A's information, company B's information, and I'm putting it in there asking questions, and I'm also can be liable for putting proprietary information into that system.
Sure. Yes.
So you have to be extremely careful with that.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. I think that's the part that as people are figuring things out, it's like the hard lessons people learned about the internet, right? When it first came out. I mean, I'm thankful every day that there was no such thing as the internet when we were kids because there's no record of any of the stuff we did. You think about when the internet really came out and people started to, and they're like, we'll just delete it. It's like, well, you can delete it, but it's not gone. It's there forever.
Listen, the web is forever. You know, and the biggest example of that is, when people go to trial and they think, I've scrubbed my system. And then all of a sudden somebody comes to subpoena's Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And they got a history of things that you did back in 2005. Yeah. And you're like, wait a minute, I deleted all of that.
It was a lifetime ago, first of all. And
no, it's
absolutely.
So true.
It's crazy.
I agree. So what are some of the skills that like HR professionals should be thinking about today that they're going to need to have in order to work effectively with AI and to kind of, because to your point, we all want to be strategists, right? We all want to do the thinking work and all of that, but there's only so many of those jobs in every company. And so to your other point, there will be job loss as a result of this, but how can you kind of, prepare yourself a little bit? So maybe that if you are embracing it and you're getting the skills, like what would you recommend?
Absolutely. I think a big thing is about organizational effectiveness. I think a lot of HR people need to focus on that. Yeah. I think learning is going to be a big deal because you're gonna constantly having to create content, create things around upskilling your people. Then addition, when you implement these chatbots and legislation changes, you have to have some HR people that are constantly updating and keeping that content fresh.
Right. Great point. Yeah.
So you have that piece of it. And then you have your center of excellence that I think should always be in place, or your shared services where people have I have a Linda and a Cyndi that I can talk to about payroll. Yeah. And that's what they do. I mean, this is what they do all the time. They don't do that. And I get on the phone with you and it's like, Cyndi, I don't do FMLA, but I can refer you to another team. And that team specializes in however many leaves or paid time off that's associated with that organization. So you need to have those type of things in place. And within benefits and health and welfare, there's a multitude of things that can go on.
Oh gosh, yeah, for sure.
So, but I think the thing is that's going to be very important for HR people, not only being strategic, but also updating that content. That content is going to have to, because it's not going to update itself.
Right.
So
good point.
You have to go in and make sure that, like, with the laws change next week, who's going to update that?
Right.
You got to have an HR professional that's constantly in review of policies, procedures. Even if something changes within the organization, the company may say, hey, we're doing away with 401k.
Yeah.
I need to have a whole new policy around what that looks like. And it's also keeping organizations on their toes about keeping their policies and procedures updated as well. So those things will have to be continuously updated. Absolutely.
Too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even the way we do employee relations right now, that is shifting. So
good point.
Being able to say, this is the policy about this. I mean, we're in a gig society now where the things that I just talked about this when we talk about the future of work, and I say, it didn't look like what it looked like 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I said, you ask people now, what's a pension plan? Half of them don't know what it is.
So true.
They've never seen that. They're telling me, oh, we don't offer crypto. We don't offer this. The things with certain rights and privileges to people. A lot of organizations are now offering benefits they didn't offer 20 years ago.
That's very true.
We're doing... we're doing same-sex adoptions. We're doing fertility things that were never written. We're never done. 10 years ago, they were never done.
Yes, yeah.
So now we have there are opportunities for us to kind of come in and refresh and relook at and be strategic about how we do some of our policies and procedures also. Even when you think about the remote worker, the digital worker now.
That's right.
What do we have in place? A lot of people that come and work in organizations also too want to know a career path. So we need to be able to kind of help and design some of those things. So it's never going to be a shortage of, hey, there's no work.
Right. Yeah.
And it all can't be done by AI.
No,
it can help, but it all can't be done without human intervention, for sure.
It's kind of a good starting point. It's a good brainstorming partner. It's a good repetitive task. It's a good starting point with those chat bots and things like that. But then when it gets to the next level, to your point, Ebony, just needing to talk to a human being. So it really is that collaboration.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, I agree.
You're going to need, I tell people, human intervention. People still want to be connected.
Yes, they do. Yeah. No, people do. We still need that. And I think you're seeing that more and more as there's a big focus on culture, right? The whole conversation around culture and that is because we did kind of go through this weird time during COVID and we created this separation, and now they're craving the human connection and kind of creating that. And culture isn't AI. Culture is through human engagement and being part of that people side of it. No, it's very true on that.
Now, I will say engagement might look different because
good point.
Just kind of what we're doing here is through podcasts. You see people on TikTok. You see people doing reels on Instagram and even on LinkedIn. I mean, you got people doing all kind of things. I think the way organizations will market to people is going to be different. I was talking to a recruiter friend of mine not too long ago, and the way we kind of do recruiting is going to probably shift again because now they are doing stuff like digital resumes.
Right.
And, you know, you getting
and you have to cross check that too, right? So now I've got real smart, and I have AI create the resume I want it for that job. I may not have any of those qualifications.
Absolutely.
But now I've submitted a resume to you, and you think, wow, this looks great. So you have to have ways to cross-check that as well, right? So that's going to change the world of recruiting. Like, how do you now validate that it's not AI producing this? Like, is that a real person that's sending
exactly
resume, right? Yeah.
And so you have certain people. I was talking to, like I said, my recruiter friend, and she was saying how they're doing interviews, kind of like a pre-screen, if you will, where it's a video first, and they have the conversation, and then you send over your proposal / portfolio.
That's so smart.
Yeah, very smart.
Cool.
So you get to know the person first before then they send.
You decide to take them to that next level. I think
absolutely.
Exactly.
No,
and that's going to be
really
let me tell you,
smart.
that's going to be the next thing. You're going to get digital templates around resumes. And I don't mean the standard, let me send you all my credentials. It's going to be like a proposal.
Right. That's true.
Something like not necessarily a PowerPoint, but you kind of get the gist of what I'm saying, like a one-pager that has your face.
Why you're the right person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love
that.
Yeah.
No, that's very true. What do you think? So I've seen a little bit coming out more and more about this agentic AI. Can you talk a little bit about because it's really, that's kind of like this whole idea of utilizing agents, right? And so I think that's what agentic means. Can you talk a little bit about that, Ebony? Has that come across your desk at all?
It has not, but if I had to guess, I think the agents are going to be kind of like a more centralized portion of what a job does.
Okay.
So you'll have kind of like, I was telling you, like we have a recruiting agent that answers questions. Like I think what it is, you're looking at different bots, if you will, that will just do certain things.
Okay, that makes sense. So they're like the dedicated, they're almost like the central services, right, of an organization. But again, doesn't replace the human aspect of it. It's just now you've got that. Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it again goes back to that very baseline. And it's just like I said. You will see organizations that are configuring things at an alarming rate to fit whatever their needs are, in terms of that. So sometimes we only need a recruiting bot or a recruiting agent that does this. And I don't need the rest of it. I like having my HR people here and they do the following, but I need a recruiting agent to kind of help my recruiting people. Or like when you call Delta Airlines or one of the airlines or United, and they give you the option. You can hold, or let me send you this link, and you can have it. We have a travel agent that can jump on and chat with you.
Right? Yeah,
we'll call you back, or
or they'll send you over to a chat right away. Yeah,
and then you'll get the AI thing first.
Yeah,
and then you'll get the person.
That's true. Yeah, no, they're getting smarter and smarter. They're like little, you're sometimes you think you're talking to a person and then
you're not.
That's not a person.
It really is going to be interesting, and all these applications that you're talking about, just like where we are going to be back to what you said before, Ebony, 6 months from now, 12 months from now.
Yeah.
And how much more reliant we become on AI,
Yeah.
So, I mean,
well, look at these cell phones, right? I mean, who nowadays doesn't walk around with a cell phone? Because I can't even, I've lived in Colorado my entire life, and suddenly I can't find my way around Colorado without putting my GPS on. Like I type in stuff all the time. I never had that growing up. Like there was no GPS helping me find my way around. And there has been such a heavy reliance now on that. So you're right. You're absolutely right, Cyndi. And how reliant will people become on AI?
Yeah. And I mean, we've seen the shift over time. It was the internet first,
Yes.
Being open source to get information, right?
Yeah.
I think that was like the biggest thing in the 2000s. And then we evolved to social media, which, now that's where people rely on to get their news. I mean, when people go online, everything is an app. I mean, oh my God, I can do everything now. Then it went from just virtually how you do your shopping, how you conduct your day-to-day activities. I mean, at one point, now you don't even have to go to the grocery store.
That's true.
I mean, you don't even have to go to a liquor store. You can actually order it all.
Everything right in your door. Yeah.
and send it to you.
It is. No.
Think about what healthcare is doing with the teledoc. I mean, you got now people are taking virtual appointments. Like, you know, if it's
even
not something,
therapy sessions virtually.
Absolutely.
Coaching.
Absolutely.
Yes. A lot of that sort of stuff. What advice would you give, Ebony, to people? So, like, I don't think, you know, we shouldn't be afraid of it because it's change, right? And both you and Cyndi are change agents. And so it's not so much like, we don't want people to fear it, but you should be cautious. So how would you, like, what recommendation would you give to people who are kind of like on the fence, going, yeah, I don't trust this, or maybe I trust it too much? Like, what guidance would you give people?
I think education is important. And I think you have to also understand that it's data and it's algorithms and where. And so when you put something in the system, nobody's ever asking the question, where is my information going?
Very true.
That's a good point.
I think you have to ask yourself that question. It's the same thing. So like when you think of healthcare, we got HIPAA involved. So obviously I can't put this information. They can't give me this information via phone. They can't give me this information unless it's me in person or they have a signed written verification, right? So I think people need to treat Gen AI and just AI period in the same thing. Think about what you're sharing. Think about, do I want my data? If my data became public today, is this the information I want to have shared? And I think that's the biggest question people need to first ask themselves as they kind of go through understanding this. Then you got to think about what it is, you know, how this information is even being used, even after you put it out there.
Yeah.
So I think those are the things that people don't really think about.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing is education, being gradual with it, being mindful of the information, and what are you actually using it for?
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, it becomes things like that. So I wouldn't put my personal information. I mean, like if I'm putting in like, oh my God, let me put in all this stuff. I don't think I would do that. So I think it's certain things because again, it's open. It's open AI.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an open data source. So the more you feed it, like it's the same thing like you said about the internet, it never goes anywhere. It will be there. So imagine if you put in your personal information and I put in, oh, tell me about Linda.
Yes.
And I got your first and last name and I'm getting a whole scroll of information.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that that's the case, but you have to think
that's true. Yeah.
You have to be mindful that if people can hack into a system and get your banking information and people can call you and automate things and steal your information, I tell people there's a possibility for just about anything.
That is very good point.
It's just about being cautious. We're going to go through the same power of resistance as we did with the internet. There are some people that's like, oh my God, I'm never going to use it. And these are now the people that you can't get an iPhone or Android out of their hand.
Right.
You know, so like I said, I think it's going to be a gradual thing, but I also think it's going to become kind of like a forced thing at some point. I think at some point, some of this other stuff is going to go away and this is going to be the option.
Yeah. I think people should get in there and try it out and do something, you know, like a free version of Chat GPT. Just get in there and play with it. And
well, you started, Cyndi, you said you used to use it. You started by putting a recipe in there, right? Or asking it to give you. Cyndi was like, I have these 5 things. Tell me what I can make with it.
Tell me what I can make.
Yeah, I've done the same. Listen, I've done the same thing. I've done the same thing. But you'll see how it's evolving because now you have ChatGPT for lawyers.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
Okay. More kind of specialized
for help them do briefs and stuff like that. I mean, but they still got to do the work. I have a friend that's an attorney.
That's right.
He cracks me up because he says, oh my God, I said, you need to just try it. You need to try it.
Yeah.
I said, I'm not saying use it for work stuff, but I'm just saying just go in and just play with it and ask for, it's kind of like the magic 8 ball.
Yes.
If y'all remember that.
Yes.
Just asking some questions or ask about recipes or ask about places you need to try or places you need to go. I mean, you can start very minimal. I'm not saying
great about creating a travel itinerary. I mean, like if you say, I want to go to this place and I want to see these types of things and I like this kind of food, like it'll create a really nice little travel itinerary for you.
And it's all, and another thing is, it's really about the prompts too. Like I've used it for my own personal, like for my resume. Let me use that as an example. I may take a job description that I see online and say, how closely do I align with this? And it'll give you the probability of what you need to do. This is not for you. This is not for that. Some things you need to work on. So you could look at it from a self-improvement standpoint. I have people that use content creators that use it for diet plans. What if I'm this weight, this height, I want to lose weight in this many days? Can you create a 30-day plan or a 60-day plan? And it'll come up with food, what you need to do, and all of that. So I think it is very helpful. I love it. I won't ever say that I don't. I think it's a tool that I use, but I'm also a person who is cautious about anything I put on the internet. And that's on Instagram, Snapchat, just the Google search, whatever it is. I'm just super cautious about what I want to have in the system and how you want to represent yourself. So you got to think about that as well.
Point. No, I
really,
love it.
Really good points. Yeah.
Well, what would you leave our listeners with? It's always great catching up with you. What would you kind of leave everybody with? Is like, what's one key insight that all HR leaders should remember?
Absolutely. I think the understanding that the future of work is going to change, and this is part of that. I think that another thing is this is a tool to help enhance the employee experience and to kind of aid with that. I think it's also something to kind of aid and assist HR professionals and leaders with really taking some of the tactical things and becoming more strategic and being able to think out of the box, being able to be more servant, like, I don't want to say servant, but a lack of a better word, to be more helpful to their organizations and making them be the best possible organizations that they can be.
Like that.
Thinking about what the value add to these organizations. And when I say organizations, I'm thinking the fully business function and what their company is representing, right?
Yeah.
So thinking about that, but also to keep up with certain trends and things like that, and understand that the content part of this is never going to go away. I think that's the biggest takeaway. So it helps you be better. They're always going to need content. We're always going to have to stay abreast of the laws. And people want human intervention. That's for sure.
Yeah, I love it. No, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, we can't wait to have you come back in like 6 months.
Absolutely.
So we can hear about, one, we want to hear what you're doing because I know you're going to be off on a new journey. And so we can't wait to have you back and talk about all the amazing things that you're doing on your new path forward here. And thanks for sharing all of this. It's always great to have someone who has so much experience and has just immersed themselves in the world of this to come on and really talk to all of our listeners out there. So
you were the person we were looking for like 5 months ago, Ebony.
Absolutely.
We were like, wait, somebody who understands what the heck they're talking about.
Absolutely. And listen, and I just tell people, don't be afraid, and really just embrace the change. That's really, and I mean, I'm a change agent for sure. I think I'm a poster child for change, but I tell people just kind of be open and embrace yourself and just think about, it's like anything, whatever you feed it is what it's going to be. So I think that if nothing, that's the biggest takeaway. With the workforce is definitely going to change.
The workforce is definitely going to change. You're right. Absolutely. No, it is an ever evolving. Well, like they say, the only constant is change. So
absolutely.
Yep. No, very good. Well, thanks again for joining us, Cyndi. Always wonderful to see you as well. And we'll look forward to having Ebony back. And thanks to all of our listeners out there. And we hope you have an amazing day.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
You bet.
Our pleasure.
Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of the HR Her Resources podcast. We're so happy to have you with us on this journey. Music and production by Logan Misigatis of LJM Productions. We'd also like to thank our intern, Lauren Banas, for creating our logo and supporting our social media postings. If you'd like to connect with Logan or Lauren, you can find their information in the show notes. If you found value in our discussion and think someone else might as well, please follow, subscribe to our LinkedIn, and share with a friend. Until our next episode, please take care and continue to support one another.